This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast.
With Tony Bruschi.
That it is, and we are talking with Robin Dreeke, retired FBI Special Agent, Chief of the Counterintelligence Program. Talking about the case against Kouri Richins. This is the mom who allegedly poisoned her husband with a Moscow mule laced with fentanyl, and then went on to write a children's book about grief for her kids, the father that she allegedly murdered. It's a twisted one, to say the least. Robin, when you look at this individual and their behaviors, what stands out to you?
It's just one more what moment in my life. So it's just more crazy brain going on. The thing that I'm really curious about is all the money that she was in debt for. I'm so again, let's go back to the arc of life.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about her arc of life. What is going on in her secret life? This woman obviously has secret life, because if there's something going on that we're unaware of yet, that law enforcement probably is more aware of now. And I think there's going to be a lot of interesting revelations that come out in this trial as well. Just because that is just, why does someone do that? And so there's more there than just debt. How does she have access and know how to get fentanyl from a drug dealer? I mean, you see what I mean? That there's a lot of little strings there that are just kind of poking it out right now. I think that once they start pulling on, they're going to have a whole other life that she was leading that we're not aware of yet.
I mean, one could argue and say, well, if you asked around enough, everybody's got a circle. Well, maybe a lot of people have circles of friends, and maybe one of those circles and that friends knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. And if you poke around enough going, could someone get me that? Well, so-and-so could get him. I don't, does it necessarily, point to her being in some sort of double life in a ring of drugs, or could it be fairly simple that that's kind of how she asked around and wanted out of this marriage and found a very dark way of doing it?
Yeah, well, it's not the how you get the drug side, but again, healthy people, those are questions healthy people with healthy relationships don't ask, because what healthy people do is, if you want out of a marriage, you get out of a marriage.
Sure.
You go file for divorce.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other ways to do it. And so if it's motivated by money, well, why? I see. I mean, it's when you go to extremes like that, and it just means there's something. There's always more there. I don't think it's as simple as, well, she's in a lot of debt. She wants to bump off her husband and get the insurance money and write a kid's book and live happily ever after. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. That's why I'm just really, I don't know what it is. That's the fun thing about discovering what's going on behind the scenes. We can't guess at what it is. We're usually pretty off. At least I am. But what I am usually good at is this definitely deciding, there's a lot more there going on, because that's not what people normally living do. I mean, just so again, let's look at this. Let's look at what we do know of her life so far. From outside appearances, and this is what she presents to the world, she's a good mother. She's got a nice home, husband that has a good job. They're making good money. And so looking for drugs, looking for ways to bump off your husband, that is a major deviation from the arc that she's presenting to the world. That means in her own mind, those behaviors are normal for what she's doing on this other side that we're not aware of.
Sure. And
that's my theory.
Yeah, but then to figure out what is going on the other side, what triggered it, why is it going on? Like, how did it get there to be acting out in these sort of ways? The way I looked at it a little bit was probably fairly simplistic. It was, in my mind, he wasn't going along necessarily with all of the projects she wanted him to do. Specifically, she wanted to buy this multi-million-dollar fixer-upper. He was kind of putting the brakes on it, and he was the money machine for her, and said, no, I don't think that's a great idea. And upon enough pushback, she was removing an obstacle in her life, if you will. It makes you wonder about her ability to feel emotions and things of that nature as well, if she's able to do something like that callously, as well as write a book about death and have a caricature of your dead husband on a cloud looking down at your child playing in a park. That in itself, I think, would be insane to do, or extremely difficult to do for someone who actually does have emotions, just knowing that you are the one that's behind the death, and now you're pandering this to your children as if he's still there and he's still watching us from heaven.
I'm with you. That's why it's so bizarre. And anything that bizarre, I'm with you that it's simple, but at the same time, I want to see that other side of what's going on with her. And also the husband, I mean, so this wasn't her first attempt to kill him and poison him, according to what the husband said. It's all hearsay and anecdotal, I know, but if he had warning signs that his wife's a little off the rails trying to kill him, wouldn't you be a little more controlled about what you take from her? I mean, or just leave her too? I mean, it just is weird.
I think in a lot of cases you would be. From the outside looking in, obviously, it's very easy to say, well, why are you not more cautious? His argument, from what I've read from friends and family and acquaintances, is that he was there because he was concerned for the kids' well-being, and that he didn't want to just break this up and then be 50-50, where he didn't trust her with the children on her own in any way, shape, or form. So he sat there as the bumper to be there for the children. I understand that. I had been in a situation similar somewhat. It didn't end with us being on Dateline or anything.
Right,
but
right.
It was, I mean, it came to literally the other person, demonstrating how they would possibly kill us. And that was me finally saying, I'm out, we're done, this is not going to happen anymore. But until you're at that moment, I understand where he's coming from of, I need to be there for the children, because there's not a court that's going to say, just because I feel this way, that she wouldn't have 50% custody of the children, and you feel more safe at least trying to be there to protect them, even though there's a danger to you.
I agree. And as tragic as it is, hopefully, because he was feeling these things, similar to what you were saying, and communicating that with others, there hopefully will be a string of evidence that they can go back to historically and pull from text messages, from conversations, from friends, from family, to piece this together to put her away too. Again, if she's guilty.
And there's always been people like this that have this lack of empathy, lack of emotion. But do you feel like is there an influx of it? Is this an epidemic of these type of people? Did something happen in the raising of adults that are now around this age, in their 30s, 40s, that is a higher level of these sociopathic type people than we've had in the past? Or are we just hearing about it now more?
I'm kind of with you on that, Tony. I think it's a combination. I think what we've seen so much more recently is, as we've said before on the show, is this lack of problem-solving skills. People, and it's our fault. It's every generation, creates a generation behind it. And I can only speak from, my generation. I'm a hardcore Xer / boomer almost.
Sure.
And when I was raising my kids, if something went, because when I grew up, it was extreme self-reliance, a lot of grit, a lot of resilience, a lot of solving problems, because you're literally on your own from nine years old on.
Yeah.
And so we didn't want our kids to do that. So every time they faced a problem, we took care of the problem for them. If they came home, we did it for them. The helicopter parents created a generation, not everyone obviously, but created a lot of people with a limited problem solving skill set before they hit the adult world and started adulting.
Yeah.
And so when you have a limited skill set to solve problems, and you're watching social media, or you then have a lack of empathy, or whatever the typical things are that people need to have to take these extreme actions, if you don't have a problem-solving skill set, you just go from 0 to 100, and you start acting and doing stupid things like this. And I really think that's part of it. And I definitely think that COVID and the effect COVID had on mental health, not just in our country, but around the world, impacted that as well. And also social media has a lot to do with this. And it's a different take on social, not social media like, oh, it's so harmful. It's what social media isn't giving us. And that is the human one-on-one connection that we biologically and physiologically need to feel whole. Our species has evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to have one-on-one contact. And social media is a good way to stay connected, but it's not the same thing as touch. It's not the same thing as a conversation just a couple feet away from someone. And so it leaves us this emptiness inside where we think we're feeling whole. But again, it's exasperating mental health challenges because we're actually not connected. You combine that with COVID and a lack of problem-solving skills, and I think we're seeing what we are in the world right now.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast
with Tony Bruschi.
Robin Dreeke, right there, former FBI special agent and chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program. Thank you for your insight. Hey, if you want to weigh in on this case or any case that we're following for you, you can do so. 888-5-KILLER is our phone number. 888-554-5537. We'd love to hear your thoughts. My name's Tony Bruschi. Press subscribe wherever you're downloading podcasts. You don't miss any breaking updates and discussions on these cases. Stay with us.